Lowe's knows that no matter your paint project, saving is at the top of your list. That's why when you shop today, you can buy one, get one free select Valspar and HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams one-coat coverage interior paints via rebate. Shop these deals in-store or online today at Lowe's. We help, you save. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. See sales associate for details. Offer valid 8/21 through 9/3.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Monday, August the 25th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Beth Fagan is sitting in for David Williams, who's on holidays this week. Let's make it a week of light lifting for Beth while lighting up those phone lines. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 86-26. So the 2025 Canada Summer Games are in the books after the closing ceremonies last evening, which looked like they were a pretty great time. So we certainly spotlighted the fact that we're pretty strong in para and Special Olympic sports. In the other competitions, maybe not as much. But there's 5 special awards handed out last night prior to the closing ceremonies. Of the 5, 3 went to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. All right, so Jamie Randall, who was the chef de mission for Team NL, accepted the Jack Pellich Award on behalf of the entire team. That's to recognize competitive performance, sportsmanship, fair play, cooperation, friendship. Good for the team. Molly Pomeroy, this is a big award. She was given the Pat Luchelt Award for exemplifying true sport principles. She's a track athlete. And Dave and Debbie Short, good friends of mine. They were 2 volunteers from the province, of course, and they were honored with the Paul Flaherty Volunteer Award. I'm pretty sure Debbie never made it home for 2 weeks. Slept in a trailer close by the accommodation site. So congratulations to all hands. And I've, hearing things about the price of tickets and those types of issues. And I have heard from parents who were involved with their children here. They're originally from the province and getting pretty good reviews for how the competition was handled and, all the alternate arrangements made to deal with issues such as the wildfires and the smoke and what have you. But the games are in the books. You want to chime in on it? You know me, totally up for that conversation. This past weekend, plenty of provincial championships in play for minor baseball. Just want to isolate one particular champion. Special thank you and congratulations to the St. John's Capitals in the 11UA Tier 1. There you are, the provincial champions. I mention that because my nephew Charlie Martin is on the team. So congratulations, Charlie. And his little brother Sam was the bat boy. So bravo to the Caps in the 11UA Tier 1. They are the provincial champions. Fantastic. And for golf fans, big winner of the weekend for Brooke Henderson. Already the most celebrated professional golfer in Canadian history. So she's had a bit of a drought for a couple of years, but over the weekend she won the national championship, the CPKC champion. She won that tournament back in 2018. At that point, she was the first Canadian to win that title in 45 years since Jocelyn Bourassa of Shawinigan, Quebec, who won back in 1973. So 14 titles on her resume, some Grand Slams also on her resume, some major championships. So Brooke Henderson back in the win column, and that is a good one. 4 under 67 yesterday to win by a stroke over Australia's Min Ji Lee. Congratulations, Brooke Henderson. Terrific player. All right, I mentioned the Canada Games. Should say, and we talked about parasports, Gavin Baggs, of course, was the flag bearer. 4 medals in the championships, and he's in his 4th games, comes away with 4 medals, gold and 3 silvers, 3 on the track and 1 in the pool. Congratulations to Gavin in particular for sure. Okay. So, good news is we seem to be turning the corner with the wildfires. So most of the resources now will be primarily focused on the Kingston fire, which is still somewhere in excess of 10,000 hectares. Saturday, some low cloud ceiling and some other issues which kept some of the air suppression services on the ground. But hopefully they'll be able to get that Kingston fire under control as soon as possible. A lot of rain in the forecast for tomorrow. Hopefully a lot of it drops right on top of that fire. All right. The whole thought of what's next is a big one and a big question. Cleanup is going to take a significant amount of time. Then it's the whole conversation about insurance covers or access to the Federal Disaster Relief Fund or what the province is actually going to do. But the few things, we have congratulated and thanked everyone involved, whether it be fighting the fires or opening up their arms to welcome evacuees and all those issues. We're happy to take on any angle you're interested in this morning. We talk about how kind we are and receptive to people visiting the province. Unfortunately, we're not as kind to each other. The stories coming from Ocrapick Cove, which has been decimated by the wildfire, the Conception Bay North fire. The story that someone or some people have gone in and ransacked a home, stolen ATV, while people are being evacuated, worried about what's going to be on the other end of the fire when they get back to see what is still standing or what has been lost. I mean, it's just pure scum that would go in and ransack a home that has been evacuated because of a wildfire. So apparently one of the ATVs that was stolen, see if I can get a description here, a 2022 blue Can-Am Outlander. If you see it around and if you know who stole it, look, even if they happen to be friends of yours, they don't deserve your friendship. I mean, these are just terrible people. On top of all the anxiety and the worry and the frustration and the anger, you come home to find out your stuff is stolen. People have beat up the house, ransacked the house, don't even know exactly what's been lost. Apparently there's 3 such examples of this that have happened. And remember, Ocrapick Cove, what was it, 59 structures gone, 86 in Western Bay. The population of those 2 communities, about 443 people as per the 2021 census. But, what is wrong with people? Anyway, we can take on anything involving the fires and the pending aftermath because there's a lot to be discussed. All right. Won't be long before the kids are back in school. And we've talked about this issue, countless times during this program, is for folks who are in some sort of major panic or rush, that when a school bus stops and deploys the stop sign and the red lights are flashing, you still pass it. You can only imagine how many close calls have taken place out there. And so now, in the form of a pilot project, some 6 buses in this area will be equipped with a camera to try to catch people passing a school bus that stopped, with little kids getting on or off. Unreal. So the fines could be as heavy as $1,200, and they should be $1,200 every single time. So my question would be, look, I think this is a good thing, obviously, but why are we starting so small? Now, the Minister responsible, Sarah Studley, says they can indeed go real big, really fast. There's no good reason as to why not every single school bus in this province is equipped with that camera. For some reason, people just refuse to abide by the stop sign, which means stop in both directions, not just the people behind the bus. So those cameras are being installed on 6, and hopefully a fast track towards the entire fleet. Your thoughts? Talking of cameras, so as you know, I think the speed cameras are a good idea. If it slows people down, excellent. There's evidence in other jurisdictions, especially when we talk about things like school zones. In Toronto, they say they've reduced the amount of speeding in school zones by some 45%. But here comes something that may indeed be part of the speed camera issue in this province. The reporting that cameras have been severely vandalized, this is Toronto, 25 times since last fall. There is one particular location which has been repeatedly vandalized. They're cutting the cameras down. So now they've had to add surveillance cameras to see who's going after the speed cameras. So some people are vehemently opposed to the speed camera. Talk about Big Brother and government overreach, what have you. But if you drive around, especially here in the metro region, which I can only speak to with any sort of authority, any mechanism possible to slow people down is a welcomed initiative, in my personal opinion. Yours may differ, and that's fine, and we can take it on the program. But what's the likelihood that our speed cameras will fall prey to the vandals like they are experiencing in Toronto? Probably pretty high. All right. The economic update that we got, I guess it was last week. The weeks all blend together here now. So we can take on, the deficit, which is like $626 million. We can take on the borrowing costs of $4.1 billion. Yes, there are indeed some pieces of good news, retail sales and housing starts and those types of things. But remember, when the province decided, without consulting the Auditor General, to include all the big tobacco settlement money in this year's deficit, so close to $500 million, that's the upfront payment. Some up to around 40% coming from the big tobacco companies. The problem there gets even worse now that we've found out that money's not even in hand. We don't even have that yet. So I hear the minister talking about this is not a cash issue. It's I don't know what she refers to it, a finance issue. Not sure that hair could be split very easily. But included it in the deficit, and we don't even have it. So when we talk about the two-letter word if and all the heavy lifting it does into the future, and for this up to 40% upfront money coming for the big tobacco settlement. Unbelievable stuff. You take it on. I'm going to put this back out there because I still need someone at the provincial government level to just explain to me and to others as to why exactly we are not signed up for National Pharmacare. So it's a question being asked around the country because apparently there's only 4 provinces, 1 territory that are signed on. 2 of those provinces are signing on this week, we understand. So the biggest elimination is of any of these small co-pays. If people are told that your diabetes medication or your contraceptives are on the federal government time in the National Pharmacare program, that's welcome news. So as a taxpayer of federal taxes, I would like to know why we haven't signed on. Neither of those aforementioned areas are concerned to me personally for my own health and welfare, but for many of you, they are. So if we're already chipping in with our federal taxes, maybe there's an explanation that I haven't been able to think of, but the National Pharmacare conversation is not going away. So if anyone can chime in, and especially if you're someone who would be able to avail of those first 2 introductions, diabetes medications and contraceptives, I'd love to have you on the program to talk about what it would mean for you. And maybe someone at the government level, even through a comms person or someone, just send me a bullet form email about some of the concerns or the negotiations or what exactly is going on here. Because it's there. We can avail of it, but only if we assign on to it. Anyway, your thoughts. Let's take it on. Last week spoke with Staff Sergeant Mike Summers, who is the president of the RNCA. We're talking about the special constables, which I think is a really good idea. And it's not a new concept. They've been employed in Ottawa and in Winnipeg for quite some time. And they can take on some duties that fully sworn police officers maybe don't need to take on. Securing a crime scene, staying on site when there's a big traffic issue on the highway, whatever. Administrative duties, paperwork, what have you. I also went on and we talked about the RNC saying that they need more officers to come up with the national standards of officers per number of residents. Okay. I also asked them how many RNC officers might be on leave, extended leave or otherwise. Didn't have a number, but we do have numbers regarding the RCMP. So there's an oversight body called the Management Advisory Board. They look at this issue and make recommendations to the RCMP Commissioner. Okay. So here's the concern. As of December the 21st of 2024, about 7% of the regular members were on long-term off-duty leave at an approximate cost of $58 million. Why is that? Because they have no, as the Commission says, no incentive to return to work. They're on leave at full pay. Other police forces in the country take it on a little bit differently. So they'll have targeted decrease in pay over X amount of time as you're on leave. Look, no question, RCMP officers need time to recover from whatever it is, a physical issue, a mental health related issue, whatever it is. But for some, and I mean they just got an 8% salary increase over 2 years, there's got to be a mechanism. Look, I feel terrible for a member of law enforcement who is indeed putting his or her life on the line. No doubt about it. And what they see can be extremely traumatic, of course. The possibility to be injured on the job is high. But when the Commission looks at the incentive to return to work, I think that's a reasonable conversation that we can engage in. So we've got the numbers as it pertains to the RCMP. Now, the union is completely, vehemently opposed to it, but 7% of the entire force is on long-term leave for one reason or another. And, of course, if you're on leave with full pay, maybe, just maybe, at a certain amount of time that you're off, that pay begins to be reduced. And that might sound cold-hearted or callous, but, you know, other police agencies do it in different parts of the country. But at the RCMP, not so much. All right, got at least a dozen emails over the weekend about how many people's wells are running dry. Coming from the Goulds, we had a conversation with the mayor of Sunnyside last week about their reservoir run dry in full. We know there was a long, extended, hot, dry period of time. But what's the answer here? So let's just say the Goulds. If you're on a hand-dug well, is there an opportunity for government to understand that, you know, I take it for granted, I turn on the tap and there it is, clean, clear drinking water. But for many people in the province with some 180-ish boil order advisories in place, not the case. Folks living on wells, whether it be in Torbay and the poisonous forever chemicals that have tainted their water supply in some of those wells, whether it be out in the Goulds with it running dry, is there a cost share possibility or some sort of support that could move from the hand-dug well to the artesian well? which would be much less prone to running dry. So if you're one of these folks who all of a sudden the water's just not there. Oh, in addition, for the communities that have seen the evacuation orders lifted, we really need to be careful about how we use water until it's tested and approved so that you don't get yourself in any physical damage because of the water not being up to the task of being potable at this moment in time. But if you want to take it on, let's do it. All right, so apparently there's an interprovincial trade announcement coming from the government. I guess the Premier sometime this afternoon. VOCM News will carry it live, and hopefully there's some move on that front. We have heard the consternation from people who want us to sign on to interprovincial trade and those who oppose it. Basically, the argument we've heard is protection of jobs, which has always been the case for every province across the country. Even though there was a interprovincial free trade deal signed back in 2017, really didn't change a whole lot. And if we're talking about protecting jobs at the breweries, boy, I get myself in trouble when I speak to this one. So the worry is if the big breweries were able to send in product from elsewhere, that might jeopardize the hundreds of jobs at the two big breweries. Again, we'll use that heavy lifting word of if. If legislation remained in place, that said, you have to brew the beer here to get shelf space in like a gas station or a convenience store. And that is the case at this moment in time. The breweries say that over 80% of the product that they sell is sold from those stores. So that makes sense to me. So if we sign on to some form of interprovincial trade and that legislation remains intact, does that really compromise jobs at the brewery? And I have no interest in people losing their job. Why would I? It'd be the silliest thing of all time, but I want to talk about it. We could do. Couple of federal issues. Number one, political slogans are tedious and they might work when people are campaigning, but they have a funny way of hanging over your head if you don't follow through with one 3-worder or another. In this case, a 2-worder. It's the old elbows up business. All right. So Canada is dropping some of the reciprocal tariffs. Some remain in place, but there will be no additional tariffs, even to retaliate against Trump's 35% that was brought into place last week or the week before. For goods that are compliant with CUSMA, they won't see any additional tariffs. They were going to still talk about steel and aluminum, some auto-related matters. The union, Unifor, says that this just enables further aggression from the Americans. Small business organizations applaud it, which reminds people exactly how the bloody tariffs work. Look, as a consumer, and we can take on the whatever you think is the right approach by the Prime Minister and the country against all of these trade issues. Diversifying markets is always going to be the long-term best interest of Canadians. I mean, trade with China up 9%, for instance. But as a consumer, just a gentle and friendly reminder, Canadian companies are paying the tariff to import goods from the United States. They may indeed swallow some of it, but the bulk of it gets passed on to me and you. So right from the get-go, when this stupid tariff-based trade war kicked off, the misunderstanding about how it works is now coming home to roost for many. Small business organizations are thankful here. There's some financial relief. And the same thing for consumers. I understand and agree there has to be some sort of pushback. We can't roll over. You know, even though we do have a trade deal with the Americans, and we might be in a more favorable position than other countries, but this is relief for the consumer. And to negotiate like that with a completely untrustworthy, unreliable partner is what is the right idea. I'll leave it up to you to bring your thoughts to the program. And plenty of emails and social media reaction to the additional $2 billion in support for Ukraine. It got renewed interest over the weekend because the Prime Minister just popped up on Independence Day in Ukraine. He's in Poland now and moving on to Germany on the heels of the visit to Warsaw. But that $2 billion is an announcement that was made back in June at the G7 meetings in Kananaskis. So it comes in a variety of different forms of financial support for Ukraine and their fight against Russia. And you'll hear plenty of people say, we just can't afford it any longer. I guess the cost-benefit analysis has to also include what happens if for instance, members of NATO don't support Ukraine. I mean, that's the worry down the line, isn't it? Is that, you know, there's no reason to believe that Vladimir Putin is going to abide by any agreement in the form of a ceasefire or some sort of closure to this war. Why? Because history's clear. He has broken every single agreement on that front since he came into power. Every single one. So, yes, people are absolutely frustrated about $2 billion more going to Ukraine. And I know I got renewed interest over the weekend because it was re-announced in Ukraine. But that's money that was announced first in June in Kananaskis at the G7. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@VOCM.com. When we come back, let's have a great show to kick off the week. That means you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's begin on line number 3. Daryl, you're on the air.
Hey.
Hey.
Oh, that's good. Paddy, what I want to talk about is the drought situation, and as you mentioned on your preamble there, and I also heard a conversation there recently, the mayor of Bonavista, John Norman, and talking about how their reservoirs are gone to historic lows, and due to the dryness in our climate and not much rain and so forth. But there is a remedy to the drought. And what we should look at, like, for example, look at Israel and what they do to convert the salt water into fresh water. And I think we're going to have to start looking at that because we are surrounded by water, the ocean. And I think what we should start looking at, look out how Israel does it. And maybe we're going to have to look at things like that because as time goes on, this is the start of the, things probably getting worse for the near future. So I think this is what we look at Israel and use our ocean water, convert it into fresh water. That could solve a lot of issues. Not only Newfoundland and Labrador, but across Canada, everywhere, North America.
Desalination, for somewhere like Israel, they kind of have no choice. We kind of have options here. It's extremely expensive, number one. And there's all sorts of different approaches when you talk about things like thermal distillation and the desalination. We've seen work done, for instance, in the Great Lakes. What's his name? Tom Cairns, the late Tom Cairns, worked on things like exactly that. So when I saw the screen said remedy to drought, yeah, it can play a role, but of course, if you're talking about something specific like wells in the Gouls or the reservoir in Sunnyside or the reservoir in Bonavista, to ramp up to make it cost effective, and I've read a little bit about this, to ramp it up to make it cost effective, you'd have to produce an awful lot of desalinated water to get to where we need to be. What happened there, Beth? I think I lost the line. Daryl, you still there? Yeah, I'm not so sure what happened to Daryl, but it's an interesting conversation. And yes, we can indeed utilize that approach to it if people are so inclined. So I don't know enough about it, and I'm certainly not a scientist, but, reverse osmosis and or thermal distillation, they're the two most notable desalination points. And when I saw, the subject line, I thought he was going to talk about cloud seeding. I hear a lot about it, and there's plenty of research going on in the country at this moment in time looking at what cloud seeding might mean. But of course, then there's differences between cold and warm clouds and exactly how it is undertaken. So dropping silver iodide into a cloud in very small particles, and the concept is that they're extremely small particles, while they make their way through or filter through the clouds, can become big enough to actually form a raindrop. The problem has long been that it is completely unreliable, and it has had spotty actual impacts. Is he back there, Beth? Do I have him back on what line? Which line? Put up some fingers on line number 3. Let's see if we can get Daryl back on 3. Daryl, are you there? Okay, I'll just keep going. So, can it be effective? Maybe. It's certainly looking like we should be doing a little bit more research into how it might work. And just look back. In the 40s and 50s, there was a major project in the United States called Project Skyfire. And they looked exactly at that, cloud seeding and what it might mean. At that time, they were talking about in extreme dry conditions to prevent fires starting because of lightning strikes. That was the specific focus at that moment in time. But I've heard a lot from people about this, and it's not conspiracy theory, weird stuff. It doesn't modify the weather to the extent that some people refer to when they say cloud seeding. But the Russians were at it back in 2020 and 2021 for the forest fires that took place at that time in Siberia. So there's a conversation there. Let's see if Daryl's back on 3. Daryl, are you there?
I'm there, Paddy.
Okay.
I'm not sure what happened there. We got disconnected.
I'm not sure. I'll let you finish your thought, though. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, as we're saying there about how Israel does things, convert, and they got no other choice, as you said, like from salt water to fresh water. But in actual essence, we're probably going to, it might cost a lot of money, but in the long run, what happens when reservoirs do go dry and you can't get no other fresh water or artesian wells, or whatever the case may be, then what's the price we're going to pay it in? So I think, and this should be on probably a federal level, we're going to have to take a look at all this, because I don't see things getting better for the near future. And I know it's a cost factor, but then again, we can't put a price tag on people's lives as well, because, I mean, we can't survive without water. And like Bonavista and them, they ran pretty close to empty from what I could gather, or coming close. Hopefully they're rebooted again. But not only that, like you mentioned, the Ghouls, and there's a lot of other communities besides. And, like so far we've been good here, like Gander and like St. John's, like as you said. But in the near future, we're going to have to take a look at this technology. Because if we don't, I think the problems are going to get worse. And what happens if you get towns like Bonavista got no water and they're relying on fresh water? What's going to happen then? But at least we're surrounded by the ocean, and so we're going to have to look at that technology. I think we're seriously going to have to take a good look at all of it in general.
Fair enough, Darrell. I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thanks, Patty. And again, sorry for the disconnection there, whatever happened.
I'm not sure, but I appreciate your time.
Okay, all the best. Thank
you. You too, pal. Bye-bye. And, when we think of that, I'll just toss this out. They're really not that important. But, talk about the salinity of water. When we talk about the world's oceans versus the Dead Sea, which in the Jordan Rift Valley, as people know, it's between the Jordanian border and the West Bank and the Israel proper. So the salinity of the oceans is, I think, on average, somewhere around 3.5%. The Dead Sea, 34%. I mean, you see pictures of people floating right on top the water surface. We can all, if you just relax and you try to put out your arms and spread your legs, we can flow down fresh water like down an air spout. But see people it looks like they're actually on top of the water because the water's so dense, because of the level of salt in it. But 34% compared to the world's oceans in and around 3.5%. That's probably apropos of nothing, but there you go. Let's take a break. When we come back, Stella's in the queue. She's actually a victim of the wildfire. We'll find out more from Stella right after this. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Stella, you're on the air.
What there?
Good morning, Stella. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning.
I'll just give you a little knowledge of who I am. I would think that I was the last house that burnt in the North Shore on the North Shore wildfires on the 15th of August. And my point of calling in today is that I just wanted to make these points of some of the management things that went down with the government and the RCMP with that fire.
Go ahead.
Okay, we had a major fire in Adams Cove on May the 7th. All warning signs of an arsonist. Between that time, after that, I think my knowledge now that there were between 8 to 10 fires started between that and August the 3rd. So the fire started in Kingston on August the 3rd. We had evacuation orders. August the 5th, the Premier admitted it had tripled in size. But only then did the province ask for extra help. First crucial days of the fire, Newfoundland was fighting with only 2 water bombers in the whole of Newfoundland. The government's decisions came too late. Resources weren't ready when the fire could have been stopped. And once the small fires of Holywood and Paddy's Pond started, we were forgotten. Government knew of the prevailing winds that day. They knew pulling their resources from Opal Cove and Western Bay would burn them to the ground. So, Patty, here we are. We have 738 structures burnt, 198 homes that are gone. Smoke, heat, and water damage will increase or triple that number. We lost heritage buildings, community halls, numerous Newfoundland culture sites. The damage is immense. Schools, post office, and landscapes are gone. The sense, of course, the biggest thing is the sense of safety and belonging in the communities has been shattered. Patty, we need answers.
I'm really sorry to hear that you've lost your home. I can't imagine how that feels, honest to God. Just so I have a full understanding here, you need answers as to how resources were deployed and when they were deployed. Is that specifically what you're looking for?
Yes, that's specifically what I'm looking for, is why. I know that when my house burned, people were watching it burn from a hill down the road in Burn Point. I watched it burn because people were showing me videos. That date was August the 14th. No resources were sent to that north side of the fire. Everything was just left to burn. I know this is hard for people to believe. Like firemen were pulled out and things like that because I know the fire was, it was an inferno. But it got to be an inferno because the resources were pulled out. Like I'm talking, one house after the other burnt. And nothing was done. Like we need, basically, I suppose, after it's all said and done, we need an inquiry to find out why were the resources pulled from Western Bay and over the Cove.
I hear plenty of these concerns, and I understand where they come from. So the thought in some people's minds is that the decisions about where and how to deploy, whether it be boots on the ground or suppression services in the air, were made by politicians versus fire duty managers, folks who are actually working and have an understanding of how, where, the best use of resources. So do you think that there was any political decisions, or do you think it was all done by people who actually work in fire suppression?
That's what we don't know. That's what we need to be told. Like they have to come out and tell us, like, why were those decisions made to take out the resources, send them to Holywood or Paddy's Pond. And I'm not disputing that. That the fire should have been out long before the Paddy's Pond and Holywood and all those fires started. Like we had one water bomber for a while. Then when it tripled, when the fire tripled, then we had two, and it was gone way too far then. There was no coming back from that.
There was one day where the press conference included, the fellow's name was Craig. I can't remember his last name. He's the fire duty manager. And I was glad he was there because, for the politicians to give us updates, that's one thing. But he was there specifically to talk about how resources were deployed. Did you happen to hear that press conference that day?
I probably did. I listened to all of them, yes.
Yeah. So those questions were asked. He answered. Whether or not people think that was the right answer or they agree with it or they understood it or not, I don't know how every individual hears things. But it was helpful to me because I'm fielding all these calls and all these emails about how come they're not doing this, how come they're not doing that. And he basically talked us through the criteria for moving resources and when you can and cannot be in the air with the water bombers and helicopters and stuff. So I'm going to see if we can find that clip. Hopefully someone in the newsroom has put that aside because if so, I think it'd be helpful for us to replay it here, just so everyone listening to the program understands how they approached when they made the decisions and how they made the decisions. But I'm terribly sorry for your loss, Stella. I really am.
And also, I just wanted to say, my property, I'm in Northern Bay. So people have gone back to Northern Bay, like the lights are on and things like that. But I live Northern Bay Sands area. That's where it stopped. The fire kind of stopped there because the wind changed, of course. Now, in my garden area, my sister also had a business there, Johnson's Gardens Nursery, for about, 40 years, and that burnt to the ground. And really, there was no need. If we had help came that day on the 14th and the 15th with a water bomber, we would not have burnt. I watched the water bomber on the 14th. It came after it left Paddy's Pond. It arrived at the top of Northern Bay, and it started dumping water 4 o'clock that afternoon. It put the fire out that burnt us. It actually put it out. And I said, we're in good shape now. That fire is out. But of course, the next day, the 15th of August, nothing happened. No one came. And so the fire wiped us out, all of us on that side of Northern Bay. It already had wiped out over the Cove. It burnt out over the Cove. I don't even know if there's any houses even standing there anymore. But we had businesses burnt. Like there was, I just wanted to tell you about Jacob's Meat. Like it's a business that was there 100 years, well known, all over Newfoundland. Survived, as the owner tells me, it survived 2 world wars and the Depression. That got burnt down. It's just devastation. I don't know. Like the government has to come out now and give us some answers. What is going on? Again, Patty, this is a big thing. What's going on with this arsonist investigation? Is that going to happen again, like next week or 2 weeks or 2 years down the road? Like, something has to be done.
I don't disagree. Now, the RCMP say they are investigating that particular fire, including some fires that are on Twillingate as well. So we're told that's an active investigation. And I hope if someone actually lit these fires, if there's an arsonist out there, or more than one, because I don't know, but if there is, you can only hope they're caught and punished.
Yes. Well, this is not going to stop until they stop. Like, I just want to add one more thing now before I go, is that myself and Bill Kellen, we have started a Facebook page. It's called North Shore Wildfire Victims. And first, when we started that page, we were thinking that maybe we'd just have the people who actually lost property. But it just bloomed. Like in the 4 days now, we have about 1,200 members, people who have joined, people who are telling us stories lost. That you can hardly read their stories. They're so sad. And anyway.
I'm getting them too, Stella. My email inbox is absolutely inundated with stories of loss. And it's horrid. It really absolutely is. And the what's next, well, I suppose you want answers as to what happened in the rearview mirror. Well, we also need those. And then the bigger questions about how the mess gets cleaned up and what's next steps and how people rebuild. I mean, the conversation's not over. Even if the Kingston fire gets extinguished today, which it won't, if every fire is put out, we are just at the very beginning of trying to figure out what's next. And insofar as how resources were deployed, I'll try to have that conversation here on this program. I'll try to get the right person on to talk about it step by step, fire to fire, because I think people deserve to understand how those decisions were made. If there's specific criteria about protection of infrastructure or the transmission lines or the population size, I don't know. I heard some of his answers, but I'll see what I can do on this show for you, Stella. I really will.
See, I don't think the firemen that the North Shore Fire Department are allowed to speak now. Like, so I don't know when they're going to be allowed to speak, but I'm sure they have lots and lots of stories to tell. How they were told to back off from houses and don't put the fire out and all things like that. So these are stories that have to be told. Like, and again, we're hoping, and we're getting close that somebody who witnessed someone setting those fires will come forward and tell us who they are. We have to stop that person. They're not going to stop.
Probably not, because we know the mindset of the arsonist, the pyromaniac, is their glee is watching the fire burn. Their glee is watching people panic in response too. So, absolutely. And I'd like to, we won't get an update from the RCMP and on any sort of active investigation, but someone out there knows something. They do. And that person or people who potentially started any of these fires, they could have burnt down your house. And your house might be next. They could have burnt down your nanny's house. They could have burnt down a century-old business in a community that you're from. So someone knows something.
Someone knows something, and people know things too. People are looting people's homes now.
Yeah,
that's another thing. That's the whole news story here. Like looting, going in looting people's homes. People who are out at their worst moment.
Yeah, there's.
They go in and take things.
Yeah, I mentioned one such story coming from Oakapit Cove. Apparently, the RCMP have recovered some of the stolen items, including the ATV, and apparently no charges have been laid, which I don't understand why. But anyway, that's a strange story.
That's a strange story. I read that too, and I'm thinking there's more to that story. It has to be.
Yes,
I hope there is.
Yeah, me too.
And that's my story, and I just wanted to tell it, and I'm just hoping people can hear me. I was a teacher on the North Shore, and I'm hoping, like some of my students, if they hear this call, that if they just get in contact with me and give me some information, something that they know about who's starting those fires, because it's not going to stop.
Stella, I appreciate your time. I wish you nothing but the best. And we'll try to get some follow-up questions and answers on this program, if at all possible.
Thank you very much, Patty.
Take good care, Stella. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, boy. Let's take a break. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Bigland FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Rob, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Doing okay, thank you. How about you?
Not bad. I just want to, because I was listening to Stella there, and I've been on before and talked about the Fort McMurray fire, which I lost everything. And the government's got their pinkies in everything. The people don't know what's going on because the government will not allow people to talk about it.
Talk about what?
And the boots on the ground, the people that know what's going on, they can't talk about it because they'll get fired, and they will, it'll just ruin their life if they talk about it. And it's complete BS. What's going on.
Well, one of the decision makers regarding forest fires here, a guy named Craig Cody, thankfully one of the listeners sent along a link to his remarks in the press conference on August the 15th. So he's a decision maker regarding fire suppression resources. So he was speaking.
Yes, but he's only going under governmental directive, and that's the biggest problem, because money is a thing where they don't want to, they can't spend too much money, and it's a big crap of, what.
I'm not entirely sure what you're talking about. They don't want to spend too much money doing what?
Putting the resources out. Getting, I know they got the water bombers in and stuff like that, but they're not utilizing them the way they should be. My father was a firefighter. And like I said, I've been through this before. And then in Alberta, it was atrocious what they did, trying to say that they were doing the best they can, but they couldn't. And it's just a money resource thing that the government's doing, and my heart bleeds for Stella, who was on before, because I know there could have been more done at a timely fashion.
So, but just I'll get your perspective on this. It's going to actually cost the government more on the heels of a wildfire, to use your assertion that they didn't do enough. Now on the heels of, between federal tax dollars and provincial tax dollars, it's going to cost more. So if what you say has any semblance of truth, then they're just bad at math.
Yes, no, absolutely they are. And they it's always a retractive type. They're not proactive on doing what they should have been doing before this happened. They're, it's all just like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, and like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, they're on their heels. And, like I said, it's just, th They're being reactive, not proactive.
So, insofar as being proactive regarding fires, are you talking about anything in particular?
Well, the water bombers, for one thing, and you've been talking about this for years. The other water bomber that's been down since 2018. Why wasn't that fixed? So we have our own resources here to look after this instead of spending millions and millions of dollars on bringing other people in.
The water bomber conversation, as you rightfully point out, we've been talking about that on this program since 2018. And, and here we are through all the jigs and the reels and the hums and the haws. And are we going to file an insurance claim? Are we going to fix it? Are we going to buy a new one? And here we are now, all these years later, spending $17 million with de Havilland Canada to have it repaired. And people can talk, we need to do more on the national front, and the federal government needs to play some sort of role here, which is an interesting thing because from where I sit, we want provincial authority and provincial jurisdiction to be protected. I'm not so sure why everyone wants the federal government involved in all these things all of a sudden, when it's not that long ago, people were loath for the feds to get involved in provincial decision-making. So that's one. And ordering water bombers, we've told this story many times already as well. De Havilland has a back order dealing with water bombers that have been ordered. And at the top of that queue are European countries. So Manitoba put down $80 million looking for a couple of water bombers. Won't get them until 2032 or 2033. So, then we see and some of the cost-effective measures, maybe with the Fire Raptor helicopters that we used in this wildfire season. The testing they're doing of the Thunder Wasp drones out of BC, I mean, they're not huge, but they can be very targeted, take human interaction with smoke and fire out of play. So there's a lot here yet to be considered. It's not all just about water bombers, as we're finding out the hard way. And thankfully, Ontario, Quebec, and other provinces, they shared some resources with us. Imagine if we had to take all of this on our own. And I know we've done the same, like last summer in Nova Scotia, for instance. This province sent resources along. So that's about it. I'll give you the floor for the last couple of seconds, Rob, before I have to go to the news.
Yeah, no, that's good, Patty. I just want to put it out there that, the government, they're not helping. They're being reactive and not proactive. Nobody looks into the future, and I'm not saying we can't look into the future, but just you got to look forward to things that are going to happen, and it costs more money for me and you, and that's it.
I appreciate the call, Rob. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Well, one thing we can guarantee ourselves is we haven't seen the last wildfire. I mean, there's somewhere over 700 wildfires burning right now in Canada. I mean, it's extraordinary stuff. Is there a role for the federal government to play? Maybe. Is there some opportunity for instance, de Havilland? They bought the patent that used to be held by Bombardier, and I think it was for the CL-415 water bomber. Given the fact that Bombardier, de Havilland have seen financial support coming from the federal government, not once, not twice, many, many times, is there not a way for priority for Canadian provinces at de Havilland for water bombers that would precede, whether it be one European country or another, that may have got in front of, say, Manitoba in this case, but given how the feds have helped that particular company, is there not an argument to be made about prioritizing water bombers for Canadian provinces? I don't know. What do you think? Let's take a break.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Bigland FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Bianca Lono. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Happy Monday. How are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. So, Patty, I wanted to call in this morning, or actually, you guys called me this morning. I don't know if you remember back in July, I had called in and I was sharing that I was running for municipal council in Ward 2. Mm-hmm. And I have since made the shift and the decision to run for deputy mayor in the city of St. John's.
Why would you do that? I know the Ward 2 ballot is pretty crowded. I can't remember that last count, maybe 6 or 7 people running in Ward 2, and no one running against the deputy mayor. So is that the backbone of the decision?
Well, it's a combination of a couple of things, and a huge shout out to the Ward 2 candidates, because I know that Ward 2 is maybe a little, a smaller ward. It's a condensed population, but I feel in a lot of ways we have a lot of the problems in the city. But I think personally, my line lately has been acclamation and democracy should not share the same sentence. And I have been really pounding the pavement in the city looking for a full-time position. And I'm thinking, you know what, if I can step up for my community, and maybe my community will hire me for this position because I'm bringing to the table a lot of really fresh ideas. I've been attending council meetings every 2 weeks in person just to kind of get a lay of the land, and I guess you would say onboard myself. So for anyone listening in Ward 2, that is still going to be like my firstborn child. That is my home, and that is my stomping ground. And I will always, advocate for Ward 2. But I feel like I'm going to have a larger audience across the city, and I really feel like the city deserves some change. And for the record, I'm not doing it for the money. Just as a sidebar, I mean, you remember our LED sign, our 6-foot LED sign that we were going to put up in the city? That costs more than the salary of the deputy mayor. So this isn't about the money. This is about the $349 million city budget that I feel should have people that are really committed to giving a voice to the city of St. John's. And that doesn't just include Ward 2. That includes all 5 wards across the city. You've got Shea Heights, you've got the Gould. And I think that this is something, it's exciting. I'm very excited about it. I'm very passionate about my community. And I really think that I'm ready to step up. And I hope that the city of St. John's is going to give me an opportunity to show really how much I care and some of the really great ideas that I have to bring forward, because I think that St. John's has a lot of potential. And I'd like to see that to come to fruition for sure.
So you say fresh ideas, such as?
Well, one of the things that I have on so I only shifted my platform a little bit, but I'd actually like to see the elimination of at-large seats. Pause for yes. Now, when I say that is because I'm looking at some of the representation across the city, and there's possibility that other wards will also be unacclaimed, and they will, there's going to be no one else running within those wards. But I would love to see the city of St. John's have strong representation in every single ward. I mean, when I look at St. John's, I see communities within communities. Kitty Bitty has its own community. You've got downtown St. John's. You've got the East End. And I think it's really important that St. John's, I mean, we're not a big city, but we have big city problems, that they have strong representation within their ward. And then on the flip side of that, I would love to see those roles as being full-time jobs. So when I say full-time, I'm talking full-time jobs, full-time pay, but full-time accountability. Because people may not know this, but aside from the mayor's position, all of the roles and all the other 10 city council roles are considered part-time positions. And when I look at municipal, and I know a lot of people have been calling in today and they're not happy with the government, municipal elections is the grassroots foundation. I mean, I look at municipal as, that's our day-to-day life. It's garbage, it's snow clearing, it's our roads, it's nonpartisan, and it's a bridge of communication to the province. And that is something that is that's very important. I think that gets a little bit overlooked because it really does impact our day-to-day lives. And so I'm going to plan on calling in every Monday, and I'm going to discuss a different topic so that I don't eat up all your time today. But I do have some really great ideas in terms of how we can kind of tighten our budget a little bit and make sure that the residents of St. John's are being able to take advantage of, all of our resources and where our spending is going. I've been doing a lot of I'm going to do a little plug here. If anyone wants to follow me on Facebook, Bianca Lono for Deputy Mayor, I've been plugging a lot of stats and a lot of interesting information in terms of how our money is spent, different bylaws that people may not be familiar with, because there's a lot of details here. St. John's is a little bit different than a typical municipality. Think, for example, the RNC is run by the province. We don't have any budget that's allocated to the RNC. So it's things like that I think we need some strong leadership. And not to say that the leadership that we have right now is not strong, but I think we need a fresh set of eyes.
Just a very quick, before I run out of time, Bianca, what is the concern with at-large councillors? I think they play pretty effective roles. What would be your rationale for doing away with them?
Well, I would like to see every ward being represented as a full-time role. Right now, they kind of talk about it. It can be a part-time job, so you can still have your job and you can still run for a council. But in the world that I come from, a $349 million budget is not a part-time budget. And I think you would see a different type of commitment coming out from people. And again, I'm not poo-pooing on any of the people that are running right now. They are amazing candidates, and I've gotten to know some of them. But I would really love to see that full-time commitment to the city rather than just, as a part-time job. Because, the city, it runs full time. And I've got some stories that I'm going to share with you over the next couple of weeks in terms of things might be surprised in terms of what's contracted out versus what is not. And I really do think that having that full-time commitment would make a difference because it also is full-time accountability. It's really hard to hold people accountable if they're only giving 50% of their time necessarily to city council. Now, can I just do a quick plug in terms of across the province for municipal? Because I've been listening to Municipal NL, and I had attended campaign school through Equal Voice, and I was shocked to find out that there are so many communities that don't have representation. Like, people don't step up into that role. And I think it gets a little bit tangly when people think of politics, but really it's about having passion for your community, and anyone can step up and represent their community. So to that end, a little PSA for the province, it'd be really nice if they would turn around and announce finally when the provincial election is, because we're going to be competing, and all the municipalities are going to be competing with the provincial election. Our city is going to be cluttered with signs very soon. And this is a fun fact you may not know, but municipal donations for campaigns are not, they don't qualify for tax receipts. So people are pounding the pavement to get to know the people in their community, but we're not eligible for to be able to give out tax receipts for any donations, which the province, in provincial and federal, you're allowed. So it would be really nice if we were able to share the floor. So if they could announce that election, we know it's coming. I'm getting stuff in the mail, and I see signs popping up. It would be really nice so that people know where they can focus their attention, because I cannot bring home the point enough that it starts with municipal. That is our everyday life when we talk about municipal voting. And again, it's the bridge to the communication to the province. And I just think it's really, really important.
Fair enough. And, we've had municipal elections in the past where not even enough candidates ran to fill all the council seats, which is, I know it's a potentially thankless job, and many of these municipalities would have volunteers as members of council, but a lot of what we deal with in our day-to-day lives is the responsibility of the municipality. That's true. Bianca, I appreciate your time. I wish you good luck out there.
Thank you so much. I'll be talking to you next week.
Sounds good.
All right, have a great day. Thanks, Patty.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break in. When we come back, Everett has a personal wildfire story, and then we're talking Ukraine. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
And welcome back. Let's go to line number 2. Everett, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. This is Everett Taker calling. I won't take up too much of your time now. I heard Stella. I heard Stella on there about Okapic Cove and the fire in Okapic Cove, and I'm descendant of the Jacobs family, over 100 years of that meat shop being there. Tore my heart out. But I just wanted to say I've lived around the world. I've seen a couple of forest fires and whatnot in Australia, in BC, other places around the world I've seen it, and I don't think I've quite seen anything like the destruction with this wildfire in Kingston. Just want to say that I have a cabin, a small home over in Okapic Cove on the side of the cliff. Never got any confirmation that the cabin has burned down or was there, but I did happen to just scoot over and boat 2 or 3 days ago when the weather was civil and look from the ocean up, and my cabin is gone. So I'm not sure if that's a structure that is actually known about. It's probably an extra one you could add to the list, right? But just the immense heat coming from this fire, I will say I've never ever seen anything like it before. I've had chop saws, table saws, I had scaffolding and stuff over there. There's literally nothing left. It is just disintegrated.
It's horrific. It really is. So there's different processes for notification, different responsibilities. For incorporated municipalities, it's the responsibility of the municipality. For cabin country, it's the responsibility of the Department of Justice, I'm pretty sure. So there's some of those splinters. It's probably a good idea if we move the notification process all under one banner, just so there is limited confusion out there when we're talking about such confusing and heartbreaking times.
So that was one of my questions. I didn't know if there was a specific person I could phone my MHA, or do I phone the RCMP, or do I try to get a hold of someone in provincial government to let them know? I mean, and I wouldn't expect anyone to physically walk down to my pastures. I have a farm out there as well, Seaside Farm, so I have a gated fence. It's 1,600 feet down across the fence to the edge of the cliff where my cabin stood. So I wouldn't expect anyone to, take that risk to walk down to see if that cabin is actually still there. But yeah. I know of 8 other cabin owners who are, and when I say cabin, they're everything from 20 by 20 to 30 by 20. You know, some of them are smaller houses. People spend hundreds of thousands of dollars putting them up there. And they are off-grid, remote off-grid cabins, so to speak, for insurance purposes. But they're also wondering, and they would also like to notify if their cabin is gone. You know, they're asking me, who do we notify? How do we get a hold of someone just in case? It's also important to understand the true devastation of this fire.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I just want to get this right, Everett. So for municipalities, it's the responsibility of the municipality for notifications. If it's an unincorporated community, I think it's the Department of Justice. If we're talking cabin country, it's the Department of Fishery and Forestry.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that's Fishery and Forestry is who you would notify that your cabin is actually burned out?
Well, that's who would be responsible for notifying you. So if you have any questions about cabin country, it's the Department of Forestry.
Yep. Okay, that's good to know. Thanks, Paddy.
No problem at all.
Yeah, no, it's good. And, I just want to say that people in North Shore are very strong individuals, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And I'm positive that we will rebuild from this. We will get back to some sense of normal. It is going to take some time. From what I've seen just in both, it's extremely devastating. I've never seen anything like it before. And I think when people actually return back to those communities, I truly believe, it's going to take a toll on their emotions for sure. It did on mine. And I think possibly some counseling should be set up or so forth for the people that return there. Because it's not a very good situation at all, Paddy.
You know, we all need to see the aftermath, but it is going to be a nightmare to actually see with pictures and videos that are eventually going to come out. And I'm sure the news media outlets are, anxiously trying to get in there to share the information. But if I was someone who had lost a home or potentially lost a home and everything therein, I cannot understand how people must feel here. It's just, here I am sitting in the east end of town. It hasn't had a direct impact on me and my family, but it has a direct impact on my mental well-being the last couple of weeks. I can guarantee you that. Everett, I appreciate your time. I wish you good luck. Let me know how you make out with the Department of Forestry.
Sure. Sounds good, Paddy. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Take good care. Bye-bye. Can you imagine some of those pictures we're about to see? Let's go to line number 4. Terry, you're on the air. Hello, Terry. You're on the air.
Hello. Yes, you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, very good. Good morning, Patty.
Good morning, Terry.
Yeah, I'm calling you. The main reason I'm calling you is about you mentioned in your preamble about the war in Ukraine and Canada's commitment to give more money, another $2 billion, I think. And a little late. I was doing something there. But before that, I just want to, again, briefly mention the fire situation there in Conception Bay North, and that the I'm sure the vast majority of Newfoundlanders feel for those people. And there's going to be a long discussion, no doubt, on how the fire started, if it was human caused, if it was arson, how many structures were destroyed, how it affected all those people's lives, and what the compensation package is going to look like, and so on. And so I, as one tax-paying Newfoundlander, don't mind at all the tax dollars we spent fighting that fire through our own resources and the resources brought in from the mainland and the millions of dollars it costs. I think that is money that we should not even be griping about. I mean, you put yourself within the shoes of those people, and you wouldn't be worried about 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 million dollars that the government spent by renting resources or chartering resources from other provinces. I mean, they would have done the same no matter where that fire was. If it was down here on my peninsula, the Favorite Peninsula, or it was on the Beatty Verde Peninsula. And, anyway, I don't begrudge that. And I commend the firefighting job that was done. It's so easy to criticize. We're excellent at criticizing us human beings, criticizing the government, criticizing the firefighting. But, we can devote some of our energy sometimes to things other than criticizing, right?
I agree. Just a couple of things on that front. Number one, are you seeing people criticize the money spent to fight fires?
Well, you had a previous caller there who was saying, a couple of callers ago, one or two callers ago, was saying, the government is only reactive, they're not proactive, there is a shame what the government did or did not do. He was not very complimentary of many things, right?
Yeah.
And, yes, the criticism has its place at times, but sometimes we put more energy into criticizing than we do to try to find something that was done good, right? And so anyway, but the main reason I called, and again, before I leave that topic, that I know I'm only one citizen of our province, and the Lord has blessed me a little bit in the last 8-10 years, and through hard work as well. And if there's anything I can do personally, I just want to say it on the public airwaves, if they have a fundraising venture or ventures, and I'd be only too happy to help financially as best I can with the cost of replacing the structures and the non-human things. I can't fix people's emotions and sadness, but and so if I give whatever $100 or $500 or $10, and thousands of other Newfoundlanders do, I'm sure it'll all add up and help in our own way. Right?
So just one more comment on how people are reacting here. Look, if someone has been displaced by wildfire, if you've lost your home or someone belonging to you has lost your home and everything that's in it, and you're frazzled and you're complaining and you're worried and you're angry, I just don't feel the need to step on people when they're down. So they might really firmly believe some of the things they think and say here, or maybe it's simply a result of their emotions just running wild because they have been impacted directly. So I understand where the complaining comes from. I understand where the frustration lies, but there's probably a time and a place for anybody to say, stop your complaining, because it's tricky times and tricky emotions to navigate for me and for individuals. So I get where they're coming from. And whether or not their concerns are validated by reality, I'll leave it up to the listener.
Yes, and you made an excellent point there, and that caller I referred to might have been a person who lost his home or structure or structures, and if that's the case, I apologize for what I just said. An individual who's personally affected, you're exactly right, his emotions at the time are gone wild. And if that caller was one of those people who got directly impacted, I apologize to him that he probably in one way has a right to criticize because his emotions are all gone topsy-turvy at this time, right? But what I meant by my comment was if the general public who's not affected directly by those fires always being critical, okay? Not to that particular caller if he was someone who lost his home. I don't know if he was or not. He didn't say, or I didn't hear him say, but to clarify that point. So the main reason, or the other reason I called, is in your preamble you mentioned about the Ukrainian war.
Yep.
And the fact that Canada is, contributing more money. I think Prime Minister Carney mentioned something about another $2 billion figure this weekend when he visited Ukraine. And I, again, as one taxpayer, don't mind that. I think Canada, yes, I don't think that government always spends their money wisely. I can pick lots of places where I don't think they are spending their money wisely, provincial and federal. But, that particular avenue of spending money, I agree with, because history, if we don't learn from history, what are we going to learn from, We went down this road with Hitler in the late 1930s, and with Chamberlain there in England and this appeasement thing, and hoping that nasty person was going to stop what he was doing by us giving concessions all the time. We see where that got us. I mean, I personally visited Auschwitz last year in Poland and other concentration camps and Berlin and all over Europe, and again this year, and I see what the result of that appeasement was. And my impression of this Putin guy is he's another Hitler. And if Canada can spend money to help the cause, to equip Ukraine to fight that bugger, I want to come on worse than that, but I can't do it here in the public airways, and along with other countries in Europe and the U.S., if Trump finally changes his attitude a little bit, I think it's money well spent. That's just my opinion, okay? So I'm sure other people might have different opinions.
Yeah, they likely do. Look, Canada was one of the first countries in the world to recognize Ukrainian independence back in 1991. Another, I think, important part of this conversation, people can agree with the spend or not, but the largest Ukrainian diaspora in the world is in Canada.
Yes.
That's part of the conversation here. Well, I guess the first largest is in Russia, second largest in Canada. In addition to that, us and our key allies were involved in. Now, we weren't signatories to the Budapest Memorandum, but basically, between the UK and the Americans and the Russians, convinced Ukraine to give up all of their nuclear capabilities in return for what? Security guarantees.
Yeah.
So, it's again, there's nothing fundamentally simple about this conflict and this war, but there's just a couple of reasons that people can't consider if they're so inclined.
Yes, and we as Canadians, we have a kind of a brotherhood, which is what you were just saying in a different way, with Ukrainians. I mean, you go look at Western Canada, our prairie farmers. A large number of our prairie farmers are Ukrainian immigrants that came here a long, long time ago. Very hard-working, smart, industrious people. And they're obviously smart and industrious. Look what they're doing. You've got David fighting Goliath over there. Look what they stood up to Putin and his forces over the last 2-3 years. I mean, they're amazing people if you give them a chance. And I think we got to give them a chance. We know where this appeasement is going to go. It's going to go nowhere. He's going to take Ukraine, and then he's going to come after Poland and the rest of Western Europe. We'll have another world war. And as for this Putin's threat of nuclear weapons, if you do this, if you do that, it's time for us to get off that bandwagon and call his bluff. I mean, what man and his bureaucrats under him is going to start a nuclear war? I mean, he's going to self-destruct too if that happens. So we got to get off of that fear bandwagon that we're on to. Oh, if we give long-range missiles to Ukraine, Putin's going to use his nuclear threat again. That's all bullshit, in my opinion, and it's time for us to wake up and look at what happened when we tried this route with Hitler. And anyway, that's my say on it, so thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate yours, Terry. Thank you. All right, there we go. Let's see here. Let's get a break in. When we come back, Agnes wants to talk about a story of stolen goods. What that story entails, we'll find out. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Agnes, you're on the air.
Good day, and how are you?
Doing okay, thanks. How about you?
It's been a long time. I'm very good. It's been a long time since I've been talking to you, Patty.
Is this Agnes from Corner Brook?
Yes, it is.
Very well. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, a long time. Anyway, someone that I know had an accident 2 weeks ago coming home from St. John's. They rolled her vehicle, and the lady got hurt, so she was admitted to the hospital in Grand Falls. And now she's in the hospital in Corner Brook. And her son, who was driving, they had rolled her car, and he had some bruises. He was taken to the hospital, but he wasn't there too long. He went back to his car, They had been to Costco, but when he got back to his car, over $2,000 worth of stuff was taken out already, gone. Someone stole everything. So, to my mind, like, whoever did that, like, if you want to take it home and say, I had the stuff here when you're ready to come get it, or get in touch with the cops and say the car is there with the stuff into it, stand guard or whatever. But anyone would do that. I think it's the lowest person on earth. Unreal. It's totally unreal to think. But anyway, he wasn't gone all that long. When he got back, there wasn't a thing left in the car. So...
People are just, so many people are just simply awful. I mean, I don't know what the protocol is for if and when there's been an issue with a car rollover, one place or another, about securing the scene and securing whatever might be in said vehicle. It's a very similar type of criminal who's looting evacuated homes in Ocrapick Cove or Western Bay or what have you.
Exactly.
Just even
hopefully that person is listening, because I am a firm believer what comes around goes around.
Me too.
So, hopefully. And also, I will pass one comment on, like, I watched the news a lot, and I had to stop watching it because it was affecting me too bad. I mean, to see what's happening in Ukraine and to see what's happening in Gaza, and I mean, I'm questioning, like, I thought United Nations was set up so that we would never see this again. That's my firm belief. And I firmly believe that Putin and Netanyahu are Hitlers, just same as Hitler.
Well, it's interesting conversation. Now, the United Nations, formerly the League of Nations, based on Woodrow Wilson's 13 points, is generally a place for diplomatic conversation and the imposition of sanctions and what have you. The UN is never actively involved in fighting wars. We provide the old blue helmeted peacekeepers via the United Nations, but I don't think they have any real capacity to control actual armed conflict on the ground necessarily. It's also interesting to me that, there's some countries have simply ignored the International Criminal Courts, which is just sort of strange thing. Like the Americans won't recognize any of the rulings made. And whether people like it or not, Vladimir Putin and Benjamin Netanyahu have been deemed war criminals. And people disagree, but that's actually a determination that was made at the International Criminal Court. And, of course, the Americans ignore it. We know that to be true because the Russian president was in Alaska last week.
Yeah. I know, it's awful. It's awful what's happening. And speaking of Ukrainian Independence Day, I attended a Ukrainian Independence celebration yesterday at the ski lodge, Bloomingdown Ski Lodge in Corner Brook. And there were 74 people there, and it was lovely. And it was so nice, and they're very talented, very, very good people, very hard workers, very good people. And Patty, I got approached there while I was there. Actually, it was the counselor from Corner Brook approached me and see would I start up the support group again.
Are you going to?
I'm 85 years old now, and I'm still battling. So, but I did tell her when she's ready to have meetings, I'll help her in any way I can. And I will.
And good on you, because you and I have spoken many times talking about some of the support group meetings.
Many times. Yep. I mean, I did a support group for 25 years. Volunteered for 25. And I'm, in a way, I'm still doing it because I cannot tell you how many phone calls I get from all across the island when someone is diagnosed and with cancer and they can't handle it very well. Well, I've been diagnosed like 14, 15 times now. And when someone is battling, they can't handle it very well, apparently the Cancer Society gives them my phone number.
Is that right?
so they'll phone me. And I don't mind. I mean, I don't mind at all. I shouldn't say I don't mind. I enjoy it. I love to be able to do that, right?
And good on you for doing exactly that, Agnes. I appreciate the time this morning. Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. It's funny over the years, things like Are You Agnes from Corner Brook? First thing popped in my mind. Let's see here. Let's take a break. Took away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Bigland FM radio network.
Welcome back to line number one. Let's take more to the PC candidate running in Mount Sion in the upcoming, whenever it is, provincial election. That's Darrell Hines. And good morning, Darrell. You're on the air.
Oh, good morning, Paddy. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to call in and touch on the Special Constable initiative for the RNC. There was a shooting in Paradise the weekend of August 18th, and the community, of course, is thankful there's been an arrest. But I've heard a lot from seniors and people in the district very concerned about the lack of police presence on a regular basis. And as well, just this past weekend, I talked to going door to door. I talked to two different RNC officers to tell me, and they welcome the Special Constable initiative, but there still seems to be a significant exodus and stampede out the door of officers. I mean, I had two different members tell me the weekend that in the past year or so, they've lost about 24 members, and that don't include normal retirements. I mean, the RCMP are heavily recruiting and taking away people. Private industry like insurance companies are hiring away all these frontline officers, which unfortunately are all mid-career. A lot of them are very specialized, trained, like identification, different sections like that, and they're all leaving the RNC. And Paddy, my concern is, I guess, this is hard positions to fill, because you just can't take a constable less than 3 or 4 years service and put them in some of these specialized positions. So while I think it's great that we're hiring and trying to get some special constables to take away some of the, the human resource struggles that the police force got. I mean, I'll go back to what the association said a couple of weeks ago. They're about 90 members short to meet any kind of national standards for policing. So my fear is we're putting a Band-Aid on a much more serious wound,
Possibly, but I think you can do both at the same time. I mean, I know that, like, for instance, the $15,000 bursary to try to entice more recruits into the RNC, more money in the most recent budget, albeit some of that money simply to cover off RNC geographical footprint expansion into the West Coast. More money for 5 RCMP officers in Happy Valley, Goose Bay and surrounding area. So just where I sit, and I could be off base, the special constable concept makes sense to me. Like, if I have a fully sworn police officer standing by a rolled over transport truck for 10 hours on the highway as opposed to a special constable, I think that's a better use of the fully trained officer. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. I mean, look, the members I talked to the weekend and friends of mine in both forces, they say, look, if there's a house fire and it's suspicious, you might have a police officer got to, quote, sit on the house for 24, 36 hours. So you're just sat out in front of it in your car, and fairly, mundane, long days, and theoretically, it's not what they're trained to do, or it's not as telling and busy as they perhaps could be. So you're right. I mean, absolutely, I'm all over special constables in theory and all that stuff. But again, I'll go back to the problem is still if there's you got a trickle coming in the front door, but there's a stampede out the back door. I mean, Paddy, if 24 people, not including retirements, have left in the past couple of years, and again, this is all mid-level officers is what my people are telling me, and people I'm running to going door to door in Mount Sion. It's a concern, why? Because they say, look, Darrell, there's you're losing people with very specialized experience, training, and it's not easily replaceable. So even special constables ain't going to fix that problem. So I think whether it needs to be, look at their collective agreement in the next round of bargaining, look at some kind of human resource strategy or plan for justice and policing in the province, which I don't think we got. That's where we really need to look at it, more of a holistic approach, because, again, it's great to have these special constables, and the 10 are going to recruit now again. But, I mean, if there's a stampede out the door between retirements and people going to the federal police force and DFO and private industry, you're still, your net numbers every year are just going down and down, is what I'm being told.
Sure, and I mean, some of those officers, a significant percentage of those officers have 5 years or more experience, which is hard to replace with a new recruit, obviously. So, I think law enforcement agencies right across the country are facing similar concerns. The public's perspective on law enforcement has changed dramatically. When I was a kid, they were respected far and wide and trusted far and wide. And I think some of that relationship between the general public and law enforcement agencies has been compromised in some form or fashion over the years. And like when I talked to Mike Summers last week, some of that is because some of the headlines only happen when and if something goes wrong or there's a bad behavior from a law enforcement officer. So politically speaking, how do you attack that? That's like a social issue. And if a politician had some sort of intervention, what could that be? I'm asking that from a position of ignorance because I don't know what role politics can play in staffing up law enforcement agencies, necessarily so. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, look, it's a big issue. I mean, obviously, look, I mean, the officers I talked to the weekend, it's easy to say, look, I'll go to the RCMP, Paddy, I'll instantly get a raise, significant raise, and an index pension. I mean, which is, you know, as you look towards retirement, there's significant incentive, and you know, so our police force got to be competitive. But look, the seniors and people I talked to, you know, when I was door knocking over the weekend in Elizabeth Park, tell me that, you know, it's frustrating because you might have a break-in at your shed, you call, there's no one coming. They'll tell you to file online, and you know, you have a car accident, whatever, just put it in online, and they keep the statistics. But there's no one ever comes because, I mean, you know, there's no community policing. And again, I'll go back to the members I talked to over the weekend. A lot of them say, Darryl, I finish up a 12-hour shift. I'm probably leaving 50, 60 calls there that I don't get to, and they're passed on to the next person. And they're dealt with overnight or in the next shift, and people are called back and said, look, file it online, we're not coming. Or you know what I mean? You might have a convenience store that has a minor break-in and someone shows up 5 days later. I mean, it's tough to get community buy-in when people call for assistance. And I mean, you know, you've had one. I mean, a break-in at a shed to some people is not the most serious crime, considering drugs and murders and assaults and everything else going on in their community. But if you call and you're not seeing a response and you don't see police officers in and around your community, boys, it's tough to have buy-in and community support. Because you're right, and I mean, you were around the same age. I mean, growing up, I mean, the RNC was held in, you know, high regard, but you saw them around. I mean, there were street patrols and, you know, motorcycle patrols, and you see them down around walking out around the community. Whereas now, I mean, again, it's unfortunately, you see it on evening news when there's a stabbing or a serious shooting or some kind of serious incident where, you know, safety alerts and you know, shelter in place is issued and all that. And that's really sometimes all people see from the police force, which is unfortunate. So, like I say, hopefully if we can get a human resource plan or something to really stabilize the police force, and you got to step, you know, it's one thing to hire, and I'm all over it. I mean, it's wonderful, but boy, we got to stabilize and try to keep what we got. And if the numbers I'm being told, if that's true, boy, I mean, someone should be looking in the mirror and saying, why are we losing so many mid-career officers that are leaving our profession to go to another police force or private industry or the federal government? Because clearly there's a problem.
Yeah, and you know how that gets addressed or that leak to be plugged, we'll leave it up to everybody else to chime in on it. But my immediate takeaway is not just about staffing levels, is one, just how difficult that job has become. Two, just look at the Stats Canada numbers regarding the prevalence of a serious crime in this province. So while they might not be reacting to my shed that was broken into, it's because they react to a gun call or a drug call or a sexual assault or some sort of issue regarding extortion. I mean, well, I'm not bringing the numbers for it. The numbers speak for themselves. So while you prioritize and you triage how to approach one call or another, that's what my takeaway is. Things have changed. One, what it's like to be a cop, and two, the nature of crime in this province and how that's changed.
100%. I mean, and do you want to go do that where you risk being shot or stabbed or spit at or assaulted as a frontline police officer for the current salary that a constable starts at? I mean, boy, if you're getting less and less people applying and you're getting more and more people leaving, and again, maybe it comes down to compensation. Maybe, again, if you had a proper human resource strategy for policing, maybe you could adjust some of this stuff. But if you're not getting good quality people applying en masse and you're getting a stampede out the back door, boy, clearly there's a problem. And again, this has been going on for a number of years. And now the RNC Association has identified they're short 90, we should have 90 additional members. And the frontline officers, I'm hearing them outside going door to door saying, Darryl, boy, we've lost probably over 24 in the past couple of years. Again, going to the RCP for more money, and again, they're taking their special skills and their training and everything and going on out the door. I mean, and then you wonder then, again, the senior I talked to yesterday when she had a little break-in in her shed called, apply online. And she said, Darryl, boy, I don't know how to fill out forms online. I mean, I was hoping someone's going to come, maybe take fingerprints, maybe do some investigation, but it just didn't happen, right? I mean, and I guess there's other priorities, and this is what happens.
Fair enough. I appreciate the time. I got to get to the news, Darryl. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break for the newscast. All right, let's go to line number 1. Alex, you are on the air.
How you doing, Patty?
Great, you.
Goodbye. Listen, I want to talk about something that, no stranger to this show is cell phone coverage. I guess what I did, I'm driving across the province, going from St. John's to Cornerbrook, and I purposely called in when I got to Whitburn. And now I'm in Goobies, and I dropped you 3 times. I had to call back to the show, which is not no one's your fault, but I can't even drive from Goobies to Whitburn without having a decent cell phone coverage. And this is something that applies on the province. Is this a bee in my bonnet, I guess? Are you there, Patty?
I'm listening.
You're there, yeah. Yeah, it's just a bit of a bee in my bonnet. Like you had Danny Breen on this morning. Or you didn't have him on, but he was quoted saying, "Oh, we're so excited to have all these events, and we had all this new Canada Games venues." Now, that's great, but you can't hold a concert in Churchill Park without, no one's able to use their phone because we got 20,000 people in an area, which is people to, in other parts of the country. I do some Ubering on this, and I remember I was working the Churchill Park nights, and the app would go down. The app wouldn't work, so then people pressed Ubers, and that's where our world is going. And then, of course, the taxi cabs, the orange taxis that go around, they're app-based now. You can't even call a taxi. I've had people having to walk 2 or 3 kilometers away from different venues in the city because they can't get cell phone service. Like, what's going on? And yes, people say, well, you're in Goobies, yeah, you're in the middle of the woods. Yeah, but not last week when I was in the heart of St. John's, and you can't make a phone call. It's unbelievable. I don't know what's going on. I know what's going on. It's infrastructure, I guess, but it just seems like it's the same old conversation, and yeah, it's just, and it's when your cell phone bills are, me and my wife right now, our cell phone bill every month is $250 for 2 of us. Now, yes, you could argue that we're paying off the phones as well, but guarantee it's $100 each for get into the Bell or the Rogers, whatever yours is. So I know it's pretty lame complaint given the significance of what else is going on in the province right now, but just unbelievably frustrating.
It's not insignificant at all. I mean, we're paying for an unreliable, spotty service, number one. Number two, I mean, for instance, if you had to be in a dead zone and was involved in a collision, if you were in a dead zone and you got a flat tire, like, there's a public safety component to this conversation which absolutely makes it significant in my mind.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, I'm just looking here now, and I'm just out in the middle of the highway. Just pull over in Robbins here at the gas station, and, I just was in the bathroom that time, and I walked back out. And as I was in the building, I looked at my phone, and the SOS symbol came up, which means no service. And I was literally in the lobby of this business. And I come out, and I'm only now getting, like, 1 bar, and I'm in a truck stop, a popular spot here on the highway with 1 bar service. And it's just, I don't get it. And how are we not getting cell phone service in the city? In these big, metropolitan areas, right? Ganders, the Grand Falls, the Corner Brooks. It's still spotty regardless where you go. And I don't know if you talk to someone, and Danny Breen and all these other mayors and politicians, they'll say, oh, it's a federal issue. Okay, well, someone make it a big issue because it's affecting the lives of, people that are Newfoundlanders. So whether or not you got to put more towers in, is that what you got to do? I can't be that expensive with a tower up, is it?
It is. But, that doesn't justify the fact that there aren't enough servicing all the mobile phone users in this province. Like, I said this to a caller on cell phones last week. I live in the east end of the capital city of St. John's, and there's parts of my house where I can stand at the island in the kitchen and send a text. If I go sit down to watch TV, I can't. And I mean, that's just 10 feet away. So it's completely different than it was so very few years ago. There's one caller, I don't know when it was, a few months ago, said that she can sit on her couch, look out her window, and see a transmission tower. A couple of years ago, full reliability, full service, and now she doesn't have the same service. And the transmission tower hasn't moved, nor has her couch.
Yeah, I think it's getting away from people. I don't think maybe the provincial government is not liaising enough with the federal government to let them know about our population change. But, if you got a family of 4 coming from, regardless where they're from, newcomers, never been here before, they're probably bringing in, 15 devices that, or more that connect to Wi-Fi and connect to internet. And, every one person has at least a couple of devices that are on this network. So I just don't think we're not communicating well, literally and figuratively, because you can't communicate well because there's no cell phone service. Here's my language, but no cell phone service, right? So it's so frustrating. And, if it was $3-4 a month or $50 or $60 a month, a little bit different.
Yeah, I completely get where you're coming from. People tell me, a variety of things. There's more and more phones using the same infrastructure. The 5G has reduced the geographical footprint of the tower's reliability and effectiveness. So I guess there's a bunch of issues at play as to why it is the way it is. Alex, anything else before we either lose the connection or say goodbye?
I got one more thing. I mean, you often say, "Oh, I'll get these people on," and I've never heard someone come on and talk about cell phone coverage. Have you ever? Has anyone volunteered to come on and talk about this?
You mean from the big telecom companies?
Big telecom company, member of parliament. I know it's a federal issue. Danny Breen, I know it's a city issue. Prime minister, premiers. Is there anyone you can get on to talk about this? Because it's a caller every week. You're getting a caller once a week around cell phones.
Yep.
And it doesn't seem like people calling. Like usually right now, this morning I was listening to you. I can guarantee you today or tomorrow you're going to have that fella on, Craig, with the fire and emergency services. He's probably going to come on, or you're going to play clips. If we could get someone to talk about what's going on with cell phone service, Buzz.
Well,
that'd be lovely.
Happy to get a provincial minister who's part of their responsibility and or federal member of parliament. I've repeatedly reached out to the big 3 telecom companies inviting someone to come on to answer as to why I'm paying for a service that I can't rely on, and crickets. But I'll keep trying. It's just emails for me. That's no big deal. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, I mean, and I know there's someone listening from the provincial side, and maybe some councillors. I mean, maybe Mrs. earlier was talking about how the grassroots are municipal. Well, maybe they have a place to play in it too. Maybe, you're saying you live in East End, St. John's, right next to the airport, for Christ's sakes. Maybe they can do something. Maybe they can, work their way up. Anyway, I don't know. Anyway, Patty, thanks, buddy. You're a great fellow and good show.
I appreciate the time, Alex. Thanks a lot.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. So, boom, emails. I don't know if it was real or not. And if it was, as she said, no, that's a pretty big matzo ball. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're talking healthcare out in Corner Brook. Don't go away. And welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to the independent member of the House of Assembly, elected in and serving the folks of Humber Bay of Islands. That's Eddie Joyce. Eddie, you're on the air.
Thank you again, Patty, for taking my call.
No problem.
First of all, I just want to pass on thoughts and prayers from the people from the West Coast, people who are affected by the wildfires, and all the volunteers and all the workers who are working to save a lot of homes and property. So our thoughts and prayers with all those people who are affected. As this time we're not involved with it, but we're definitely concerned and feel so sorry for so many people that are hurt by these fires.
Absolutely.
Patty, I just wanted, as the election is coming up and there's some major concerns out in Corner Brook that's never been addressed because they always just push it off till next year. And you heard about and I've been on the open line and been in the media a lot about the backlog at the emergency department at the Corner Brook Hospital. And probably about 8-9 months ago, John Hogan, who was the minister at the time, came out and announced 45 beds going to be put in the old Western Moray Regional Hospital. And at a meeting I had with the senior staff here in the hospital, and I went through that, and 15 are for people waiting who need time to have a bit of recovery. 15 will be used for people that are already in their homes and we need to go to a long-term care facility, and they're going to be used for in the old Western 15 beds. So that leaves 15 for the residents, long-term care residents, who are now in acute care beds in Corner Brook. That means there will be approximately 45 to 50 still long-term care patients in acute care beds that are still causing and will cause a major backlog, a bottleneck at the emergency department where there are no beds. We need a long-term care plan for this. This is just a stopgap measure that's going to be announced now during the election in September. End of September, come out, cut the ribbon, but they're still not solving the main issue of not enough acute care beds. And I'm getting on a daily basis people who go up who are putting stretchers in the quarters because there's no beds. And they're being told there's just no beds to put people, so we can't put, you guys have to wait here. Yep, and I'm talking elderly people, people who are very sick, many people leave. So the idea of this 45 beds going to solve this issue at the emergency department in Corner Brook is misleading to the people, to say the least. And I'm waiting for either which one of the parties is going to come out and come up with a long-term solution for this major problem in Corner Brook, and it hasn't been done yet. And I want to raise that issue because it's very serious, and a lot of people are actually leaving the emergency department because after 22, 23 hours, they can't stand it anymore. The pain is so bad. Once you get in the hospital, once you get admitted, the service is great. The care that you get is number one. You can't be questioned. But the problem is getting into the hospital. So I'll like for the parties to come out and explain what they're going to do, and not just say, well, we built 45 beds over there, but really there's only going to be 15. There's 60 that's going to be, there's still going to be 45 to 50 beds still with long-term care patients. Patty, another issue that would help a lot with the emergency department is the nurse practitioners allowed to bill MCP. I've been at this issue now for about 2 years. I know Tony Wakeham in the House of Assembly said he would approve it, and I'm waiting for a press conference that he says he's going to come to Corner Brook, have a press conference on it. But the Liberals refused to budge on allowing nurse practitioners to bill MCP. It's mind-boggling why that's happening. So here you got a flood of people going to emergency department in Corner Brook, emergency department, just to get a prescription, fill a yearly prescription. And they're waiting hours and hours, and they're taking up valuable time. And why this issue is not done, and I'm waiting to see which party is going to allow this to happen, to help out so many people, a lot who can't even afford to go to nurse practitioners if they got to go back once a month for blood work or they got some kind of illness. So that's a major issue over here on the West Coast also.
It's a major issue everywhere. You know, when I hear an announcement, like obviously 45 additional beds is going to help, but my question would be, who's the staff to keep the beds open? It's the same thing right across the board in healthcare. Like you mentioned, long-term care and acute care beds, what have you. How many people are currently in a hospital bed who belong in a long-term care bed? But there isn't enough staff to open up some of the beds that remain closed in a variety of long-term care facilities in this province. Until we get the staffing right in long-term care, we're going to be swimming upstream.
But, Patty, this is where the planning comes in. This is where the planning was back in 2018, 2019. That was in to have the long-term care extended or have bungalows built for this. This is part of the planning. But what happens is when you get this bottleneck, this is when the major issues comes in, because everybody's saying, well, we got no staff. But you had to plan that out at the time. And this is the issue now. You're taking 15 from long-term care patients from acute care beds, and put them in now, which is going to be a great facility. So no issue with the facility, but you have to make planning because this is not suitable. This is just a stopgap measure. So I'm asking each party, what's your long-term plan for this? Because it's not going to be solved just by putting 15 extra beds or 45 beds, but 15 long-term care patients moved out is what you're playing for the long term, because there's still the issue is the emergency department. And if you don't take it, if it takes a year, if it takes 6 months to get it resolved, 7 months, let's plan to get this done. There has to be some way that we can do this. But right now, it's just not happening. And a lot of people are suffering. And I hear it on a daily basis. Even that nurse practitioners would alleviate so many visits to the emergency department. Just think about it, Patty. Last year, and I said this, Alberta opened up 63 nurse practitioners' offices. Here, we can't even get one. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. When a person can't afford to pay for health care, which is supposed to be free, can't go to a nurse practitioner and bill MCP. And John Hogan said it's because they're having discussions with the nurses union. He said that to me in the House of Assembly. It's on record. Like this is something that people are being affected. And I hear it regularly, daily on it. And so many emails and calls on it. And this is an easy fix, and I'll support it. Whichever government comes out, I'll support it. I'll be there for the people of Corner Brook and the Humber Bay of Hollands.
I appreciate the time and the concern this morning, Eddie. Thank you.
Patty, thank you very much again for the opportunity to bring these major concerns forward.
Happy to have you on. Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Some people take me to task on a variety of things. I say, it's nature of the beast, right? This is what comes with sitting in this chair. But I'm going to stick with my position on nurse practitioners. I do not understand the argument against having them be able to open up their own clinic or office and bill MCP. So if the rationale is that it would maybe draw nurse practitioners out of the public system and into the private sector, I don't think anybody really cares. If a nurse practitioner can be seen in, he or she would have extensive training and a real long list of things that they can indeed do, that they're accredited to do. If I went to, this one caller last week put it perfectly. If I see a nurse practitioner at the emergency room at St. Clair's, I don't have to pay. MCP pays. If I see a nurse practitioner in a collaborative care clinic, MCP pays. So why would it not be the same thought if I go to the nurse practitioner's office on Elizabeth Avenue? What's the difference? So if I see someone in the public sector or the so-called private sector and I get the care I need, access to primary care, I think that's all people care about, isn't it? Yes, some people have the money to drop the cash on the barrel head to see a nurse practitioner, but not everybody does. And that's the trick. Let's take a break. When we come back, another hopeful councillor running in the municipal election, which is on the 2nd of October. And then Gary wants to talk about the Gulf fishery and then whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Bigland FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2 and say good morning to Kate Cadigan, running for the councillor at-large position in the October 2nd election. And good morning, Kate. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Great today. How about you?
I'm pretty good. Can't complain.
Good.
I'm just calling in today. I want to talk a little bit about our climate preparedness. First of all, of course, I want to thank all the fire crews and all those involved in battling the fires across the province, not only the Paddy's Pond fire, but of course, many are experiencing anxiety with the fires, and I'm thinking of them. We actually took a brief break when the fire was creeping near Southlands and Galway. We took a break from campaigning to keep everyone safe, of course. And since then, I've been talking to many residents, especially in Southlands, about what that experience was like for them. And one thing in particular keeps coming up, that they were on an evacuation alert, which meant, they could be evacuated at any minute. And currently in Southlands, there's only one exit for that community to get out safely in case there was, the evacuation order. And, obviously this is a huge issue. We're seeing climate change hit our province differently than we thought it might have. I think most of us, including myself, thought this might look like floods, but clearly we need to be prepared for wildfires. And as climate change continues, as a city, we need to be prepared for this kind of change. And that includes making sure there's safe evacuation routes in all of our communities, as well as building them into development plans for new subdivisions and neighborhoods.
Fair enough. And every time I hear that concern, it reminds me of the Fort McMurray fire. At that time, there was only one way in and one way out of Fort McMurray. There had long been a second entrance and egress planned, and it was never dealt with. And then all of a sudden, the wildfire hit, and everybody who had to evacuate had to take the exact same route. It was scary stuff, man. See the visuals of people literally driving through the fire. The fire's on both sides of the highway, and they're still trying to get out.
Exactly, and I think we're seeing pretty much the same thing here in Southlands, Galway. There is the exit that's been, under construction for quite some time, but it's still not opened yet. And I don't know, what it's going to take to get that exit up and running, because I think there's no better example than what we witnessed just a few weeks ago, where we could have had thousands of families, leaving their homes all on the same road, right? And that road, Southlands Boulevard, is not prepared for that amount of traffic, and it's certainly important that we look at different avenues when evacuating to make sure that everyone can get out safely and, of course, in time. Because safety, of course, is always first.
Fair enough. And when you talked about preparedness, I know there's been some moves made at the City Council level talking about protection of wetlands, which is part of it. So are there any other specifics you're talking about when we talk about preparedness? We just talked about egress and, I just mentioned wetlands. Is there anything else comes to mind, Kate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that should be considered by council, and certainly I would advocate for if I were elected, is some fire breaks along those neighborhoods that are close to wooded areas. I think, with the new development, again, we're looking at Southlands here, backs on to heavily wooded area, and I don't believe there's any fire breaks there. We need to be creative. I don't think these fire breaks need to be, gravel pits and all that kind of thing, but there are examples and projects that have been done that have used green fire breaks. So basically planting vegetation that is less flammable than what we're seeing now. And that's a great thing for a neighborhood, a community, to have, new green spaces, and something that many residents are looking for. But it also adds that another layer of protection if, we are to see this kind of emergency happen again.
Yeah. So, we do know that the majority of, for instance, it's one thing if you have coniferous trees and the risk they pose for fire, the spread of fire. The vast majority of the city is pretty much populated with maple trees. My neighborhood is just a one big maple tree.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, and that makes sense. And of course, there would have to be research that goes in behind this and seeing what the best plan of action is. But I think that is certainly something to consider, and what that fire break looks like deserves consideration. But I know those residents were feeling really anxious with just the fire, kilometers away from their homes and really nothing in between them to slow the spread.
Yeah, because like I just mentioned, maples or oaks, what have you, they are less flammable. Everything will catch on fire if it's wood. But, it doesn't have to be ugly. Like you mentioned, it doesn't have to be just a big barren gravel pit, for instance. All kinds of things, dogwoods and daylilies and maples and other succulents and hydrangeas. These are things that can be part of a pragmatic fire break.
Exactly, and I think that's the kind of solution we should be looking at. Where, our city is growing and expanding, and building this kind of, fire-safe infrastructure into new development is important. And again, we can be creative with it. It doesn't have to be an eyesore. It can be something, beautiful, but still have an element of safety to it. So, our communities and our neighborhoods and our people are protected.
Fair enough, Kate. Anything else you'd like to talk about this morning while we have you?
That's it for today. Thank you so much for having me, Patty.
I appreciate your time. Good luck out there.
Thanks. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye. Kate Cadigan, running for an at-large position in council here in the city of St. John's. Will I hold Gary for after the break? No, I'll take him now. Let's go line 4. Gary, you're on the air.
I was wondering about Gulf fishery over there, where New Brunswick, Quebec, and PEI, Nova Scotia. Everybody in the province, if they wanted to, could come out and fish in the Gulf fishery, couldn't they?
Fish? What? Like, you mean commercially?
For codfish. Yeah, for codfish. For cod fishery.
Gulf cod is shut down.
Over around Nova Scotia?
Well, I'm not familiar with all of the commercial fisheries in
No,
Nova
not commercial. I meant the food fishery.
Oh, the recreational food fishery. Okay, two different things. Well, it's shut down for everything at this
Over
point.
in the Gulf?
Yeah, I've actually got... Here's some updated... Okay, so... Northern cod, Gulf cod, two different species. No commercial Gulf fishery at this moment in time for Gulf cod. And what's the point you're making about everyone could or should go out and go for...
No, if the Gulf food fishery is open, everybody over in the Gulf fishery could go out and fish if they wanted to, couldn't they? Or the food fishery.
Yeah, where the food fishery is open, people can go out. No, I mean, we talk all the time about the restrictions put in place here and the different way the province is treated compared to, say, for instance, Nova Scotia. But where the fishery is open, yes, people can go out. I think I'm getting your point.
Is Newfoundland facing the Gulf fishery, the western coast of Newfoundland?
Is it open for the recreational food fishery? My understanding is yes.
No, yes, but I'm saying, like, is the western coast of Newfoundland, is that on inside the borders of the Gulf food fishery?
Yes.
Well, why can't everybody in Newfoundland go out and fish every day in the Gulf food fishery on the west coast?
Well, it's like...
If everybody in Nova Scotia can.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point I just made. A couple of things. Nova Scotians can't go out every single day. The difference there is that they have a bigger or a higher bag limit. Like here, we're told it's 5, and there it's 10.
Yes, well, if we're facing the same food fishery as Nova Scotia, why can't we have the same limits?
That's an excellent question. Yeah, I mean...
You know, we're on the Gulf fishery the same as Nova Scotia. Why are we discriminated against in the same area to fish?
It's a good question. I don't have an answer, and neither does DFO, neither does the minister responsible. So those are the two entities that we need to be able to answer that question, even if it was just equitable across the board. Even if we had the same rules as Nova Scotia, that would temper some of the concerns people talk about. Like, it feels like it's all bad enough that we're told Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 39 days, although they did add 2 extra weekends here because of Hurricane Aaron and the wildfires and stuff. But people still feel it's unfairly restrictive, even if it was just comparing ourselves to other parts of the country, including Nova Scotia.
Yes. Yep. It's unfair. And then we have our own people saying, well, if we could get tags, we could get this, we could get that. They're undermining their own rights that they should be fighting for, the same as what Nova Scotia got. They're trying to settle for less. You know, what do you want to look for tags for if they can go out more than us and take more fish? Why do you want to take less tags? You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've only ever mentioned tags or logbooks for one very specific reason. We hear from commercial harvesters that they don't want to see any increase to the recreational food fishery, whether it be the number of fish you can take, the number of days you can go at it, because, of course, they rely on that stock for a living. But we really don't know how much is taken. So if there was just one summer where people had to fill out a logbook or to use a tag at the wharf, just for once and for all, to have a firm understanding how much is being taken, then we're just all going to be guessing.
Yes, that's right.
Yep. Which is not great either.
No, it's not.
Gary,
anyway, that was my comment on that, right?
And I appreciate making it. Anything else you'd like to say this morning?
No, that would be it, I think.
Appreciate your call. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
you're welcome. Bye-bye. Yeah, and then, of course, there's the strength of stock in different zones. Because, again, they're not all created equal, which poses a pretty tricky problem. You know, what people in one region or another stand for, you know, we talk about the unlevel playing field between ourselves and Nova Scotia, for instance. Can you imagine if there was different rules in different zones in this province? I don't think people would accept that very easily, or lying down, or whatever the right reference is. So, yeah, let's check in on the Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. You know what to do. Follow us there. We're taking your emails as openline@VOCM.com. Still another full segment left in the program. Let's hope it's occupied by you. If you're in and around town, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. We're taking a break and then we're coming back.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Bigland FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Ron, you're on the air.
Yes, Patty. We're talking the other day about, or last week, about Mary Brown Centre going cashless.
Yep.
Yeah. And we'd just like to recap that a little bit. Yeah, like say myself personally now, I'm going to go out and go to the bank or go out whatever way I got to do it and get my debit card set up for the tap thing now because I've been talking to a few people over the weekend about it, and they said, okay, take me for instance. When I go, and I guess for people that are just tuned in that don't know what we're talking about here, we probably should recap that first. Did you want to do it, or will I do it?
Well, I'll do it. The concern is that if they won't be accepting cash at Mary Brown Centre, maybe not everybody is carrying plastic. Some people are. They like to use cash. You had questions about whether or not that would pertain to the 50-50 and what have you. In an effort to get all the accurate information, Brent Mead, who's the CEO of St. John Sports and Entertainment, is going to be on this program next week. He's on holidays this week, so next week we're going to have him on to talk about all of those related matters.
And that'd be great, yeah. Because
already worked it out.
Yeah, that's great. Great public service. Because this thing was starting to ramp up. It's going to start getting traction here real quick when this team hits the ice, kind of thing, right? So, so like I know myself, I'm going to go to the bank. I'm going to get my debit card set up for tap. Because when I was talking to my buddies week, they said, okay, you go down the lineup, and if you use a credit card and you want your receipt back, and you're punching in your numbers, and then you haven't got your glasses on you, and then you're looking to see the numbers, and is it really going to speed things up, like coming out the gate, kind of thing? So. Having what's your name, Brent, is it?
Brent Mead, yeah.
Yeah, and having him on talk and get it out in the public airwaves a bit more, in other forms of communication as well, be great for the general public as well.
Yeah, it's happening next week. We exchanged text messages right after the show when you were on last week talking about it, and so he is coming on. I know Brent a little bit, having worked with him in the past, so he was quick to offer his time to talk about that and other things, Mary Brown Centre, and other things, St. John Sports and Entertainment.
Yeah, and last week you mentioned the float and everything, 50 floats or whatever they got going on, selling popcorn, ice cream, all. I get that and everything, and I'm okay with it myself personally. I can manage it, but I know a lot of people are not going to be probably aware of it the first night, especially, and they need to get it out in there, more public, probably. Yeah. Yeah.
So next week, people will be hearing from Mr. Mead to talk about that and everything else under the SJSE umbrella. I appreciate this, Ron. I'm going to sneak out one more call. Let's go to line number 2. Harry, you're on the air.
Hi, I'm calling from Trout River.
Yes, sir.
And you can hardly see across the road here with the smoke is that thick, right? I don't know if it's coming from the wildfires out on the east coast or not. But the southern mountains in Trout River area, you can't even see them today. And the smoke is right strong. You walk out the door and it's choking, right?
Well, what direction is the wind blowing?
Southwest.
Southwest. I would have no idea what's contributing to the smoky conditions in Trout River, to be honest with you, Harry.
Well, the smoke, there's a lot of smoke, and we hadn't heard anything about it. You would think somebody will be checking and announcing where the smoke is coming from or whatever, right?
Yeah, because, this year, last year, and many summers in the past, we'd have smoky conditions experienced in different parts of the province, and the smoke could be coming as far as from Quebec wildfires or Nova Scotia wildfires or Labrador wildfires. So the source of that smoke this morning that you're experiencing, I'm really not sure. I suppose I could try to figure it out.
Yesterday, right?
Okay.
And the wind has been the same way for the last 2 days now, right? So I figure that's where it's coming from. But nobody is saying anything or whatever, right? And the smoke is getting thicker.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I really don't know the answer to your question, but I can probably figure it out.
Okay. So hopefully it's nothing too serious. Hope it's not another fire over on this side of the island.
I sure hope so.
If a fire ever starts there in the park, there won't be a darn thing left because all the trees are dead in the park.
Yeah, and all the dead trees, the fire load, that fuel, that should be cleaned up. We talk about that all the time, and I don't know why we don't do more on that front, to be honest.
Yeah, but see, the park didn't do any spraying the last couple of years either to get rid of the bugs, and now all the trees are dead. What's not turned brown is turned red gray. So, if a fire ever starts, the park will be wiped out.
That's no good. That's what nobody needs to hear, Harry. So on top,
but it seems like that's what the park wants. They're nuts.
Why would you think the park would want that? Just curious.
Well, they're trying to get rid of all the animals in the park. They don't want any moose or anything around. They've opened up the season here for the last 7 years shooting moose on the park, which is ridiculous. I figured that's why people were coming here to see the wildlife, right?
Certainly
but they're trying to get rid of it all. They don't want it around. It's strange for a park. I said, well, can you imagine going out in Banff and shooting all the elk out there because they're eating the trees? It doesn't make sense.
Well, no, with places like Banff and Jasper, you cannot touch the wildlife, period.
Yeah, but here, now they got an open season on them, right?
Yeah, there's some very, very strict rules regarding interaction with wildlife in the national parks in Alberta. I know because I lived in one.
Yeah. Well, you think they'd have the same kind of rules there, pretty similar. Like, not open up for to shoot a moose. If he's walking on the side of the road in the park, you go shoot it and take it home.
Yeah, they just do things differently out there, whether it be that extremely extravagant underpass for wildlife in Banff National Park. And everywhere there's so many cattle gates out there, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's how they protect wildlife from as much highway exposure and like at the golf courses and coming in and out of the communities. There's cattle gates everywhere.
Right, yeah.
You've had the last word, Harry. I appreciate the time.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I hope I hear something from about the smoke and where it's coming from.
Yeah, we'll see if we can find out for you.
All right.
Okay.
Have a great day.
You too.
Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, Harry. You too.
Yeah,
right, bye-bye. And if anybody knows an answer to that question, you know what to do. You can let us know there. And I mentioned off the top of the day, every time we talk about interprovincial trade, which apparently there's an announcement this afternoon, and as it pertains to the breweries, taking some heavy fire here today. So be it. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands, and we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, Beth Fagan, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.